Hello, according to my contact at Twitch, this should be live now. Is anybody hearing me? If you are, please let me know. We had this problem last time. So I hope you're all here because I know a lot of you are trying to figure out, you want to hear Dee and Carolyn's voice on the voicemails. So please send me a message. Let me know you're here. And in the meanwhile, I will start telling you some of the updates. The Enterprise flight has been delayed again until June or July, which means I have to re-record the 2-minute tribute that I did for Dee because I mentioned May 4th on it, but that's no big deal. I'll do that. Now that I have a tooth in my head again, this is a temporary tooth, but it's really, it's my implant. I'll get the final in about 3 weeks, but I have a tooth. And so you might notice I sound a little different because I don't any longer have that appliance taking up most of the top of my palate. So another thing is my passport is going to be, I'm going to apply for my passport on May 5th. Because I'm going to be traveling to New Zealand next year, maybe to Australia, and maybe to Germany if I can get some invitations to talk about Dee at some conventions there, which we are working on with several different individuals. I also got some really cool news. Last weekend, there was a convention in Australia that KARL Urban was at, and one of my friends, Trip Thomas, was there, and he mentioned to KARL something about me, and KARL said, according to Trip, KARL said, "Oh my gosh, please, extend my apologies to Chris because I haven't gotten back to her, and my social calendar has blown up. He's been so busy." And I'm thinking, social calendar? I didn't know I was even a candidate for a social calendar. But anyhow, my thought is possibly to be able to get to a convention that he is also going to be appearing at, because that would be a really good opportunity for us to get together. And if you had any additional questions or comments about Dee, then we could get together at that time and talk about it. So that would be very, very cool. I would love to have another picture taken with him too, because as you know, the one I had 5 years ago, that was before I had my chest masculinization surgery and my paniculectomy surgery. And I look a whole lot different now. So I really love to get an updated photo with him at some point too. But that is neither here nor there at the moment. What else? I'm going to share some resurrected images from my past and Dee that I found when I went looking for pictures of my sandstorm, which was Stormy, my horse's filly. And I went back into all of my negatives and archives looking for this picture of Sandstorm, and I found pictures of Dee that I didn't realize I had I actually have the copyright to this image, which I love. I thought somebody else took this picture, but actually I took it, and I have this in poster size on my wall. It's probably my favorite picture of Dee on stage. He looks so comfortable and so happy and so just like Dee in it. So, and that reminds me, I got in contact with another gentleman from Germany who read the German edition of my book and wrote to tell me he really enjoyed it and to give me thank you for taking care of Dee. And I told him if he would like, I would send him, a signed sticker that he could put in the book if he would like. And he asked, "Do you think you could send me a picture of you and Deacon?" Not Dee, but Deacon. And I went, "Oh, sure." So I did that this week and I sent that off to him. So he'll be getting that in a few days and he'll be very, very happy. The bad thing about it is when I printed them off, they seem, they were taken 35 years ago. And the state of the art for photos back then wasn't all that great. And I actually found out that a lot of the images look better on my Facebook page. So I gave him permission, and any of you, to print those off. You know, if you really like them, you want like pictures of Deacon and me or Dee and me together. My gosh, go for it. You know, that's why they're out in the public so people can enjoy them. And if you want to take them for your own and do something with them, just go ahead. Just be nice. Don't do any bad things with them, like Dee wouldn't. And now I'm going to go to the comments, see who's here. Oh, Helen's here. Yeah, Helen and Debbie and I got on the I am on the Facebook I am video the other day, and we had a wee of a time because they are who I'm going down to visit next year in New Zealand. And we have plans. We have big plans. So we were on there for like a half hour, and I'm just getting more and more the more we think about it. So now I'm going to come in here. I pulled this speaker down a little closer. I hope it doesn't cause audio feedback when I do this. But I'm going to play some voicemail messages from Dee and Carolyn because I realize a lot of you have never heard Carolyn in person. And those of you who have will enjoy hearing her again. And I went through it. I went through this 15 or 20 minute, about 18-minute voicemail tape. And I time-stamped it because there's so many things that are just repetitive. Please, Chris, give me a call. Chris, give me a call. This, that, and the other thing. And then toward the end, Dee, it sounds more and more not well. You know, he's nearing the end of his life, and his voice sounds really, really sad and sick, you know? So, and I didn't want to do that. I don't want to make us unhappy. So I have gone through and I've clicked some selected pieces, and I want to play those for you. They are in my audiobook, DeForest Kelley Up Close and Personal, A Harvest of Memories from the Fan Who Knew Him Best. That's not available at Amazon. That's available strictly through my website at yellowballoonpublications.com. I haven't sold hardly any of those for some reason. I mean, I'm just totally amazed because the audiobook is the only place where you can get the voicemails. And to me, I thought that would be a huge selling point, which is why I did the audiobook to start with. But anyhow, for those of you who would like to experience Dee and Carolyn in voicemails, you're going to hear some of it now. And if you want to get them all, they are at the end of my audiobook, which you can get again at yellowballoonpublications.com. So let me quickly look up this. There it is right there. I think I kind of introduce it. I thought you might like to hear some actual voicemail messages from Dee and Carolyn.
And I'll talk to you a little bit. Chris, this is
I thought you might like to hear some actual voicemail messages from Dee and Carolyn and various other people that were mentioned throughout the course of this book. So I'm going to turn on my old-fashioned audio recorder, and you will hear Tippi Hedren first. Then you'll hear a lot of Carolyn. You'll hear A.C. Lyles once in a while. You'll hear Dee once in a while. Then you'll hear Harv Bennett toward the end, and Teresa Victor toward the end. Teresa was Leonard Nimoy's girl Friday during the original Star Trek series. So anyhow, I'm going to turn this on. I will maybe interpose along the way who they are. So here we go. I hope this turns out well. Like I say, it's an old system of audio taping. So, but the best I can do it, I hope you enjoy it. This is Tippi.
Hi, Chris Smith. This is Tippi Hedren. Chris, your book of poetry is so beautiful that I'm just absolutely stunned. It's thrilling. I'm going to send it to our editor of our newspaper, and hopefully we'll be able to print some of the poems, if that's all right with you. Really, it's just excellent. It's superior. It's just absolutely wonderful. I've been thrilled. I was angered. I felt sad. I'm elated. It's just truly beautiful. Thanks for doing that. Bye-bye. I'll see you at the preserve.
Here comes Carolyn.
Hello, this is Carolyn. I'm just calling because I was kind of worried about Chris. I hope she's okay. I didn't get a letter from her today, and that's not like her, and I was just kind of upset about it. Bye-bye.
That was a joke.
Hi, Merry Christmas, Sue. This is Carolyn. And Dee?
Yes, Merry Christmas, Sue.
we wanted to get to you early, but I guess we got to you a little bit too late, didn't we? Anyway, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas, and we enjoyed everything that you did for us. Thank you very much.
That was while I was living with Sue Keenan when I first got to Southern California.
This is Carolyn. What is the next time? I know you're a busy gal.
I don't know that Chris Goodrich is here today. If I can round him up, I will try. You know, if I run into him, it is Sunday, so it's very often he's at the office or in the barn. So I don't know where he is. You just be careful. You don't find him taking a poke. Poke. Anyway, don't buy a lemon. Be very careful. See if I can locate him somewhere and try to call it. Be careful. Careful, you don't buy a taking a poke. Poke.
Section. On the front page is an adorable article and pictures of a little squirrel and a dog story that you will love. Now 5:25, I guess it is. And they just said that on Channel 4 they're going to do a thing on that squirrel thing at 8 o'clock tonight. There's a show on National Geographic that we think you'd like to see if you have nothing else to do. Bye-bye. If you want to pick up your football,
Thank you for the lovely.
okay? All right, bye-bye.
Chris is DeForest. I just wanted to call and thank you for the lovely cologne and the beautiful card. And as they say in the market, have a nice day.
Hello, is your thing working? Let's go. Bye-bye. Chris, I just want to be sure that you made a reservation at Valley Inn. You probably would need to make one. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for calling 708-2965. Chris and Ann are over in sick bay pursuing our duties. If you'll call back a little bit later or leave a message, we'll talk to you then. Bye.
Chris and are sick. Yeah.
This is your little...
Thank you for calling call back a little bit later or leave a message. We'll talk to you then. Bye.
Chris and are sick. Yeah, that's the reason they're in sick bay.
This is your little friend, Carolyn. Just checking. I didn't expect you to be home. I thought I'd take a chance. Very cute new little goodie on your recording. Bye-bye. Well, I had the wrong number, but I was quite amazed with your announcement. Very creative and very ingenious of you. And I would like to pursue that doctor too. I mean, duties. Bye. Give me a call, please, when you get back. Bye-bye.
Hello, Christine Marie. I'm calling before I have to go back into court in about 12 minutes. And so I'll call you a little later after I get a recess. But I have so many things to thank you for, I don't know where to start. But I'm going to start trying. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Please give me a call. Thank you. Just want to tell you we've looked and we can't find any.
Come on, dear. Give me a call from the house. There's something I want to tell you about. And enormously important, but first I waited too long to call you, but it's not all that important.
Well, I figure I dialed the wrong number on the wrong day at the wrong time. So I'll talk to you later.
Two. So, would you, when you get back, I know what you're doing, N-E-N-E. You come to the church, you told me in the past that you wanted to do girls in a hospital, and he's at 302. His business name is Needy, N-E-N-E. N-E-N-E. Then I'll call you with the one or both of you in January. I think the best way to.
Well, Chris, this is Carolyn. I'm just calling to ask how you're doing and how things are doing.
Christine, hi. This is Art Bennett calling in response to a letter I received from Terry Review. I chose your phone number as the local way to respond rather than go through email, which I don't possess, only my daughter does. Please share with your co-author that I would be happy to meet with the one or both of you in January. I think the best way to do it would be to sit down and do an interview and let me tell you about my wonderful thoughts about that wonderful man. Thanks, Kelly. Here is my office number. Give me a call whenever. Talk to you later.
Chris, this is Teresa Victor calling. I want to thank you again for including me today. I thought what you said was absolutely beautiful, and I thought you did a wonderful job. I would not have been able to speak the way that you had. I'm still overwhelmed, and let me know if I can be of any help at all to you or Mrs. Kelly. Again, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, did you hear that? Geez, I hope so. I just played it for 10 minutes or so. Please let me know. I hope you heard it. I'm on my own today. Yes, I am. Hannah is on her way to Delaware with her family, so she will be catching up with us next time. Did you guys hear those voicemail messages? Please let me know. I certainly hope you did. Hannah's messaging me right now. Okay, I guess we're good. All righty. So, well, did you hear those messages? Let me know. Yes, you could hear most of it. I know. I had to keep, scrolling back and forth to try to get to the different messages. But anyhow, you got a sense of Carolyn's voice and Dee's. So that's where we are. I guess for my excerpt today, I'm going to read the first part of The Enduring Legacy of DeForest Kelley, Actor, Healer, Friend, because in June, what I'm planning to do is get several people from this book to come on the show and talk about how Dee influenced their lives, plus possibly some actors or some other people who I know, a NASA space nurse who went in. And anyhow, I'm working on getting several people. I already have T. Rick Jones, who I just did a Daily Star Trek News with. He has confirmed that he wants to do it. And the message just went out, so I'm sure I'll be getting more of those later on. Sorry, I'm like stuttering a little bit today. I'm just trying to keep everything together, and it's not easy when I have so many things to tell you. How are you feeling after hearing their voices again? It is sad. It is sad. The first part of it's real fun. You notice that voicemail message that I put, Chris and Kat are over in sick bay pursuing our duties. If you read my book, you know what happened is I recorded that, and then I called Carolyn because I wanted her to hear it. But Dee picked up the phone, and I'm like, oh no, I really don't want Dee to hear this. I want Carolyn to hear it, And so he said, well, hi, what can I do for you? And I said, well, I was hoping Carolyn would pick up the phone, but and he says, well, can I help? And I said, well, yeah, you can help if you want to. We just recorded a new voicemail message, and we thought Carolyn would like to maybe hear it. And he goes, okay, well, I'll call back. I'll call back and hear it. And I'll have her call back a little bit later and hear it too. And I said, okay. So we hung up, the phone rings. I start laughing like crazy. I'm going, oh my gosh, we're over in sick bay pursuing our doctor. Oh my gosh. Dee calls up, he listens to the thing. And then you heard his response. It was like, Chris and Kat are sick. And that is the reason they're in sick bay. And I asked his permission to keep it, to actually add it to the voicemail message. And he said, sure, yeah, go ahead. So I did that. And then not long after, I get this wrong number, as you heard. And she said, boy, I tell you what, I got the wrong number, but I like to be pursuing that doctor myself. So anyhow, that was a lot of fun. And I kept all of those going too. Trying to think of the other stuff. I missed some of the thing where after I got an article published about why I live in the Valley, that won first place in the newspaper, Carolyn called and said, this is your press agent calling. I'm just calling to find out what we can do next for your, pardon the expression, layout on you, and hung up, so they were always, weighing in on various things. She told me, she's the one who told me to send an article in. She said, I know you'll win first place. I know you'll win first place. I said, Carolyn, you have a lot of faith in me. She said, yes, I do. Write something and send it in, and it won first place. So it was like, okay, well, that's cool. And I got to mention D and AC too, that I polished their stars. And that's one of the reasons I live in the valley, even though we get earthquakes all the time. So, okay. So now I'm going to go into the enduring legacy of DeForest Kelley and read the introductory chapter to DeForest Kelley, actor. I wrote the intros to each of the sections, and other fans wrote their reminiscences or their interactions with him in the rest of the book. But okay, fans are undoubtedly familiar with Dee's portrayal as Dr. McCoy on the original iconic Star Trek television and motion picture series. This is probably the way most of today's fans became fans, watching him interact with the crew of the Starship Enterprise. As we all know, McCoy's on-again, off-again irascible tendencies covered a heart of gold that was sold out to his patients, to his mission, and to his crewmates. Yes, even Spock. There was no doubt about that. Time and again, he offered his life for theirs as they had for his. A television host in Colorado, a huge fan of Dee's Westerns, once regaled Dee and his Good Day Colorado audience with an almost word-for-word recreation of some of Dee's lines from Warlock, a better-than-most Western that starred Henry Fonda, Richard Widmark, and Anthony Quinn. Pretending to be Dee's character, Curly Byrne, in the movie, the host did a fast draw, then dropped short when he realized his opponent, Fonda, had outdrawn him. Much to Dee's delight, the host flailed helplessly as he backed down from the confrontation he had engendered, and then jumped to another aspect of the same scene. And just before that, where you're trying to goad him into the gunfight, you say, "Oh, them pearly handles of yours, they're enough to blind a man's eye. You really ought to stop polishing that way, por favor, you know, the way you always do. Someone ought to just take them pearly handles from you and rough them up a bit, you know." When the host finished his faithful rendition of the scene, Dee's eyes shone and his grin was as white as Colorado itself. He took a brief look into the studio audience, the largest audience for that particular show ever, filled as it was past capacity with Trek fans imported from a Starland convention nearby, and he laughed. "You know," he told the show host, then pointed to his fans and said, "They know. If this wasn't a television show, I could tell you a story about that very scene," and he left it there. The show host undoubtedly asked for and received the rest of the story backstage. For those who haven't heard it, days before the scene was filmed, the director had told Dee that the Princess of Greece, Princess Sophia, would be on the soundstage the day he was scheduled to shoot the scene. Dee thought he was joking because this particular director had a dry sense of humor. I thought maybe she meant Sophia Loren. Sure enough, when the day arrived, a very real Princess Sophia and her large entourage gathered on the upper half of the stairway in the saloon where the filming of this scene was about to take place. The visitors to the set were out of camera range. At first, Dee recalled, I was very nervous, not necessarily because the princess and her people were there, but because in this scene, I had to do a flyaway. That's a move where I flip it. That's a move with a gun where I flip it and it goes into my holster with any luck at all. And I had been practicing this move, but it was nowhere near certain I could get it on the first take or even the second. Henry Fonda was away that day. Tyrone Power had passed away the week before, and Fonda was at his funeral. So his lines were read to me. In this scene, I'm supposed to goad Fonda into a fight, and when I do, his gun is out of the holster in a flash, and I realize I'm done for unless I back down. So I quickly and as humbly as this hombre can back down. I do the flyaway, and it goes in perfectly, a big relief to me. Then I start backing away with a little wave to Fonda toward the batwing doors, and this wasn't in the scene. I tripped backwards over a chair. As I went over, I called out, "Oh, shit!" Well, you could have heard a pin drop. All of a sudden, I remember Princess Sophia and her people are standing on the staircase watching this whole thing. So I crawled out through the batwing doors on my knees. And on the other side of the doors, the director looks down at me and says, "Dee, I'll bet you sat up all night trying to think of what to say in front of the Princess of Greece." As it turned out, Princess Sophia didn't know what that word meant. But when I went to the commissary for lunch that day, everyone stood up and applauded me. It was all over the lot what I had said in front of the princess. Okay, now you know about the outtake. Go and rent or buy the movie and see what D, a conscience-ridden bad guy hanging with the wrong crowd, does when confronted with the enormity of his gang's depravity. In a way, he becomes the hero of the motion picture, in my opinion. Enough said. Curly Burning Warlock was one of these very few good-natured bad guys. Most of his portrayals were so cussedly ornery and demonic that he was often hired to snarl at the likes of Steve McQueen, Clint Eastwood, Audie Murphy, the Lone Ranger, and the Bonanza Boys. If you haven't seen his other portrayals, you're missing out on some of the best acting ever in Westerns. A top-notch and complete filmography of Dee's entire acting career can be found at this website, or you can IM me and I'll send you it. Check it out. Rent some of the films at your local video store. Boy, this was written a while ago, wasn't it? And feast your eyes on actor DeForest Kelley. If you don't have internet access, ask a friend to download the site for you or visit a library. Be forewarned, though. Before watching any of Dee's Westerns, you may have to divorce yourself from any knowledge of Dr. McCoy, and that takes some doing. In order to truly appreciate his pre-McCoy portrayals, remind yourself beforehand that McCoy had not yet been created, and that Dee's cowboy portrayals were the rationale the network had for believing that Star Trek's audience would never buy DeForest Kelley as a good guy, which is why he wasn't in the first pilot of Star Trek. You will understand their concern after seeing him in these earlier roles. In my opinion, Dee deserved a Best Supporting Actor award for a number of his bad guy portrayals in motion pictures, among them as Toby Jack Saunders in Apache Uprising and as Wexler in The Law and Jake Wade. And a Best Supporting Actor television award wouldn't have hurt for his role in the Honor of Cochise, a Bonanza episode. The fact that Dee's character bites the dust in so many of his Westerns, whether soon or late, just underscores that his scoundrels had to die, or the audiences would have gone home with nightmares, and the tales told, most of which were morality plays in disguise, would have fallen flat. Dee was asked at numerous conventions about how he managed to portray scoundrels so ably when he was obviously such a gentleman. He said, "When I was a boy growing up in Georgia, there was a sheriff in town who looked as though he couldn't wait to find someone stepping out of line so that he could shoot him. He just looked like a snake to me, coiled and ready to strike." He was one of the role models for some of the heavies I played. I figured if I could capture that sheriff's ominous aspects, my portrayal would be convincing. When Dee was in the hospital the last few months of his life, he related that one of his and Carolyn's best friends for over 60 years had told him years ago that he would never believe Dee in a bad guy role, and so that's why she had never gone to see him in one. Quote, "When she said that, I became a bad guy right in front of her just to show her I could do it. Well, when I did it, it scared her so badly that she started to cry. So I started to cry. I had to apologize. I wanted to convince her I was an actor, not scare her half to death. It was just awful." In Apache Uprising, an A.C. Lyle's film, Dee portrayed a sociopath, Toby Jack Saunders, a man so devoid of decency and conscience that he exuded malevolence from every pore. The role haunted Dee even years later. He reflected, "I sat up half the night last night in the hospital thinking what a no-good son of a bitch Toby Jack was. In the script, he was supposed to ride into town, and when the town mongrel came out to wag a barking hello, I was supposed to pull out my gun and shoot him. Well, that was too much for me. I told AC I couldn't do that. I told him I would establish his character some other way. He did. I had a nightmare about that hombre after seeing Apache Uprising." Dee was one of very few actors in the late 40s and early 50s with a crossover career, working in motion pictures as well as in the new medium of television. For the most part, motion picture actors felt it was beneath them to work in television. As a struggling young actor, Dee wasn't allowed the luxury of that lofty an opinion of himself. His focus was on keeping a roof over his and Carolyn's heads. His list of credits from the 40s and 50s is mind-boggling. He appeared in over 100 different series episodes, as well as in 15 motion pictures, mostly as heavies, ne'er-do-wells, and scoundrels. Occasionally, he appeared in a role as a hapless fellow falsely accused of a crime. In motion pictures, Fear in the Night and Illegal, and in Bonanza, the Bonanza episode, The Decision. The despair, anger, or panic he showed in these portrayals was spot on. Viewers could vicariously experience this poor fellow's dilemma as we sweated for him, hoping against all hope that his innocence would be discovered before the executioner could do his fatal job. In the case of Illegal, our hope is dashed. Seconds after his execution, the truth is found out, too late to save him. The consequences are agonizing for the star of the show, Edward G. Robinson, who suffers the tortures of the damned for the rest of the picture. Dee's role in this movie is small but pivotal. Another small but powerful role in Raintree County captures the attention of the audience as Dee, the only Southern soldier seen in the film in a seminal role, rides in on a horse and is felled by a bullet. For the next 10 minutes or so, Dee's unnamed character plays with Lee Marvin's mind in an attempt to get him to let down his guard long enough so that Dee can shoot him and escape to get help before he bleeds to death. The charm and easy attitude of Dee's character is utterly captivating. The audience begins to hope that these two enemies will bury the hatchet and strike some kind of mutually acceptable deal that will allow them both to survive the intersection of their lives as Civil War soldiers. Again, it is not to be. Alas, it is not to be. And the men meet their end in a sudden showdown that is both a surprise and an outrageous obscenity to the audience. What a shame, we sigh, and then we realize the sentiment is the epilogue for the entire sorry history of the Civil War, in which men like these, with personalities and potential for greatness, fought and perished. These two men embody in a palpable way the obscenity of war. In other times, they would likely have been fast friends and would probably have been willing to lay down their lives for each other. Many of Dee's roles were small, but very few of them were insignificant. The power of his performances proves the adage, there are no small parts, only small actors. Anytime Dee appeared in anything, his character seemed to be the true north for that particular type of human soul. He got inside his characters and breathed life into them. His heavies were not cardboard caricatures. They were people, largely unaware that they were deviating from a norm. They were simply responding to cards that had been dealt to them since childhood. Their stories and actions were made perfectly understandable given their wounded psyches, and no word of exposition had to be written to explain them. We just knew, because Dee, the actor, seemed to know. Dee made bad guys bad, but he also made some of them somehow pitiable, fearfully and wonderfully accessible. He allowed us to inhabit them as easily as we could the hero of the piece, not happily, not willingly, but with a sense of morbid curiosity, the way we examine mothers who drown their children, or Hitler, or Ted Bundy, people who irrationally embarked on workable plans to carry out successive, horrible, deviant behaviors. We don't know how they got there, and we realize that if we understood them, we would be just as whacked out as they were. And yet we try to figure out their pathology as if figuring it out would make us safer. Okay. I'm going to read one more. I'm going to read one poem that's on here because it's really cool. It's short. By Mary Domon. I hope I said that right, in California. It's titled Actor. Blue-eyed alchemist gives himself to sorcerer's stone. Treasure is revealed. Yep, exactly. Okay. How are you? Okay. I think that's it. I've only been on a half hour. I could read another excerpt from something. But does anybody have questions? I live for questions. Because those of you who have read my book might have follow-up questions. Those of you who never read the book certainly have questions. So I'm just going to wait a few seconds and see if I can get some comments or questions in here. Please send me help. I don't have a co-host today, so I need help. In the meanwhile, I'll see if I can find another. Where's my D-book? There it is. All right. I'm not hearing any questions at the moment, so I'll read another excerpt from my book, DeForest Kelley Up Close and Personal. It's called Happy Birthday to You. For those who have the book, it's on page 25. In November, Kat and I planned our next adventure. I would fly to Tampa to Dee's next convention in January. Then my car broke down, and I didn't have enough money to fix it and then fly to a convention. I was distraught, but I was resolved not to let this little tragedy kill me. The week before the con, I went to the dentist for a checkup, and this experience loaded me with all the ammunition needed for the next funny letter to the Kellys, which Kat knew nothing about. As far as I know, you need to know that. I wrote, Dear ones, I want to pass along to you some vital professional advice. It's revolutionary. Up until today, I thought I had heard it all, but I was wrong. Today, when I went in for my regular dental checkup, the dentist looked around in my mouth and couldn't find anything on my teeth worth complaining about. So he asked, and do you also brush your tongue? If he hadn't had both hands and some sort of lethal looking metal device shoved halfway down my throat, I would have laughed. Instead, I almost choked. When he let me up for air, I said, you gotta be kidding me. No, he was serious. He said that people who brush their tongues taste food better. He said the bacteria found on the teeth are also found on the tongue. It only made sense that they should receive similar treatment. Okay, I accepted that. It sounded logical. But that led me to ask, but how do you brush your tongue without gagging? He had an answer for that too. Stick your tongue out and pant while you brush. I was beginning to wonder if I had perhaps run into one of those dentists you're not supposed to trust as far as you can throw them. I'm still not sure I didn't. But now I am dutifully brushing my tongue as well as my teeth, and it gags me every time because I refuse to pant in a house where others live and where the walls are thin. I mean, can you imagine? What's she doing in there? She's brushing her tongue. I see. I told you we should have had her confined when she started talking to animals, but no, you said she'd outgrow it. But the dentist is right. Food does taste better. Just what I need is for food to taste better. I'm already 30 pounds overweight. I have been thinking about this conversation ever since, and I thought, well, I bet this is something Carolyn and Dee haven't been written to about before. It's not easy coming up with the letter of the month to you that won't end up sounding like old hat. I mean, don't you get tired of hearing how wonderful you are, how you have changed people's lives, all that serious, mushy stuff? Isn't it refreshing to know you can count on me to update you on oral hygiene advances now and then? Love you, Crazy Chris, pant, pant. I sent that letter off on a Monday, the week before the Tampa convention weekend. I figured they wouldn't even receive it until after the convention, so I wasn't expecting anything the day Kat called to give me the lowdown on what was happening back there on the East Coast. She floored me right off the bat by saying, oh, Chris, the most awful thing happened. My throat fell into my shoes. What? I cried. Kat said my car broke down on the way to the convention and I missed Dee's appearance completely. I was so upset by that. I started saying, oh no, so much that she finally had to tell me to shut up so she could complete her story. But I did get to see him after his appearance, she finally managed to say. Oh, super, I said, delighted. Where was he? He was in the bathroom brushing his tongue. I screamed, probably deafening Kat for a beat or two. I couldn't believe it. Kat didn't know anything about my visit to the dentist. I knew right then and there that there was much more to this story than met the earpiece. As it turned out, Kat had seen Dee and had wound up on the same shuttle flight between Tampa and Fort Lauderdale. Dee had invited her into the first class to sit with him and Carolyn, and they had gotten to talking about this goofy letter I had sent them. And Dee had decided to have Kat play this joke on me. Now, remember, I still hadn't up to this time spent more than 15 minutes with them over the course of 18 years. I couldn't believe that they would go out of their way like this to make me feel a part of the convention that they knew I was so heartbroken over not being able to attend. Because of their thoughtfulness, I feel to this day as if I was in attendance at that Fort Lauderdale convention. Kat called me all weekend long to tell me what was happening. That night while they were at dinner, she and Dee and Carol, and actually came very close to calling me on the phone, except that the restaurant was very crowded and they were hidden back in a quiet alcove. Dee would have had to risk being spotted when going to the phone, thereby turning the whole dinner into an unscheduled personal appearance. Reluctantly, he finally vetoed the idea, much as he liked it, saying that since he preferred to remain incognito, you'll have to tell Chris that it's the thought that counts in this instance. And of course, it was everything. I'll never forget it. I'm also very glad for another reason that he didn't call. At that stage in our association, I would probably have been a complete nerd over the phone, and they might have written me off as too weird to tolerate. The next convention was 2 months later in Denver. Kat had joked with Dee at the Florida convention dinner, well, I drove all the way here to spend your birthday with you, so now we will fly to Denver in March so you can spend our birthdays with us. Dee asked, your birthdays are in March? Kat said, oh, yes. Dee said, I won't forget that, you know. We started fantasizing what he might mean by I won't forget your birthdays. At one point, I kidded with Kat, gee, maybe we'll wind up at dinner. I was sad because I had missed the one in Florida, needless to say, so it was on my mind. Then I added, I'd even be happy to pay for it, providing we go to McDonald's. They have birthday balloons. Okay, that's all, because something did happen as a result of that, and you can buy the book to find out what happened. That really was the beginning of our much longer association and friendship as it was evolving. So Helen says, tis me, says, Apache Uprising was my favorite Dee Western. Do I have a favorite? Do I have a favorite? Of his Westerns, Apache Uprising is one because, again, I got nightmares after watching that show. In fact, in the nightmare I had, Toby Jack Saunders, not Dee, but I mean, I know it was Dee, but Toby Jack Saunders walks into the living room in my sister's home, glaring, looking the way Toby Jack Saunders looked. And Jackie looks at me and says, introduce me. And I'm like, I can't introduce you. I haven't met him yet, because he made the movie before I met him. And he was like, I haven't met him yet. I can't introduce him, and I'm scared. So it was really a weird dream. I also loved his portrayals in Bonanza when he's Captain Moss Johnson, who poisoned a bunch of Indians. Because at the end of that show, there's something very poignant. And that is, you know, they finally, Hoss Cartwright finally grabs him and gives him to the captain to take in for, you know, to go to trial for what he did. And Dee's character says, but I was just following orders. I was just following orders. You can't condemn a man for following orders. And I thought, boy, isn't that, you know, a, you know, commentary on war. Because earlier, Hoss Cartwright had said, for those of you who haven't seen the show, the Bonanza boys are in an arroyo, and Moss Johnson, who is Dee's character, comes running hellbent for leather away from a bunch of Indians who are chasing him. And he runs down into this arroyo, and the Bonanza boys, not knowing anything about him, of course, take him in to protect him from the Indians. When they find out from the Indians that the reason they're after him is that he poisoned their women, their wives and children, ostensibly during a time while making peace with them by feeding them poisoned food. Hoss Cartwright says, you know, he just can't believe that he would poison women and children. And Dee's character says, well, Apache women make Apache children, you know, and in our manual, in our training manual, in our army manual, it says, route them out as you would a wild animal, right? He says, if you get rid of the women and the children, you're wiping out the danger at its source, you know. And it's like, oh my God, the logic of war, you know. Anyhow, and then at the end, you know, he's like, I was just following orders, and it's very, very poignant. That one is. And then another one is when in the decision when he's a doctor charged with murdering someone. It was actually an act of self-defense, and he's going to go to the gallows protecting his wife who had committed a crime. I won't tell you the whole story. You need to watch it. But he's willing to go to the gallows. And at the part where Dee is really, really about to be taken out of there, you can just tell how absolutely terrified he is about going and being hung. I mean, he's going to do it because he loves his wife. And if it ever got out that he was going to the gallows to protect her, she would be in trouble because she had committed a crime by helping fund his doctor career back on the East Coast before they came out to Virginia City. And it's just very poignant. The other thing about that one is Dee said that was his opportunity to experiment a little bit as an actor. When he was in the hospital, we were talking about that role. And he said, this is my opportunity to experiment. And you can tell at the beginning of the show, you think he's a real snake. You just really think he is just heartless, because Ben Cartwright comes in, a horse is fallen on Haas, and he says, I want you to help my son. And he says, well, it's going to cost you. I'm about to die. I've taken in chickens and things in lieu of money. My wife is going to be poor for the rest of her life. It's going to cost you. And he says, that's okay. What will it cost? I will pay it. I'll pay it. And he goes, $10,000. And you think $10,000 in 50s was $1 million. It was incredibly insane back then. And Ben Cartwright only hesitates for a moment and says, okay, you saved my son's life. So you think, boy, this guy, and then you find out how much he loved his wife and how he's going to the gallows to keep her from having to go back to this coal town where she had a congestion issue. She had asthma or something. And had she gone back to stand trial, she would have died just because of the pollution over there in that neck of the woods. So, anyhow, on the course of this thing, you go from thinking this guy's a snake to what an honorable, wonderful, terrific guy. And you can't wait. I mean, when they start taking him up on the gallows, you're like, oh no, you are not going to do that. You are not going to do that, are you? I won't tell you how it ends in case you haven't seen it, because you need to go see it. Okay, I remember the scene and his bewilderment as he said, superb acting. Absolutely. That was the thing about Dee. I think a lot of people didn't consider what a great actor he was, because unless you knew him, you don't know how outside his own being those people were. I mean, McCoy, I can see McCoy, because McCoy was basically a good guy. He was curmudgeonly and he lost his temper and stuff like that, but he was a good guy. He was a good human. But to see him portray these depraved people and do it so convincingly, I mean, he deserved Oscars, in my opinion. My mom said the same thing when she met him. My dad said the same thing. My dad said something really funny. He said, I just can't believe all those SOB now sitting here with you. And I just can't believe all those SOBs you played. I mean, sitting here with you, I can't believe you could act at all. And of course, Dee laughed because Dee was very soft-spoken, very unactorly. And then, I can't even believe you could act. I was like, oh my God. Okay, Dad. Dad had a really good way of putting his foot in his mouth. Yeah. Anywho, any questions, comments? We're coming up on, I have to keep this to an hour today because I understand Roger is going to do something, or somebody's going to do something on this same network at 12 sharp. So they asked me to be sure and not go beyond noon. So are there any other questions? I guess we'll take this. Are we on your own? Yes, we could hear most of it. Yeah, I'm, yeah. Yeah. Yes. I love talking about Dee. I don't do it very often. I would be surprised if 80% of the people who know me right now even knew I knew Dee, because you know, life has gone on and I've developed other friendships. I didn't, you know, a lot of my friends are Dee fans, but I've developed them in the course of meeting you all after you read the book and got in touch with me. But other than you guys, really, I don't have a lot of people around. Jackie, of course, my sister remembers Dee. She met him one time. Mom and Dad loved Dee. After they met him, at first they thought I was totally over the edge. They thought you've lost your mind, until they met him, and it's like, oh my God, I get it why you love him so much. And Jackie said she had never ever in her life been hugged the way Dee hugged her. She said it was completely non-predatory. It was completely, I felt beloved. I felt like I could have stayed there for 10 minutes and he would have let me. It wasn't a perfunctory thing. It was like one of those come to Papa thing, you know, and just hug. So, but again, we don't talk about it a lot. Once in a while, we'll bring it up. Oh, she's going to go back to bed. Now I'm losing probably half of my audience. Not half, I'm kidding. Okay, thank you for getting up for me early, and for Dee. I do want to let you people know, please share this information with other people. You can go to my Facebook page to get it. Sometime in June, I am hoping to get a number of people. I mentioned this at the beginning, but I don't know how many of you were on here at the time. A number of people, including actors if they want to, or producers or directors or anybody who worked with Dee, to come on, and it'll be the 24th anniversary of Dee's passing in the middle of June this year. And I thought we should get together with a lot of people, including some of the people who wrote their reminiscences in this book, Enduring Legacy of DeForest Kelley, to come on and give their perspectives on the man, especially if they worked with him, or you know who I'd love to see. I'd love to see KARL Urban come on, but that's a busy man. Because KARL Urban said the most wonderful things to me about Dee. He said, I never got a chance to meet Dee, but I wanted to do an homage to him that was not mimicry, that was not, you know, I just wanted to get him right. It was very, very important to me to get McCoy right. And he did. He absolutely did. I was astounded by how well he did that. He just blew me away. I was scared. I was scared to go see it because I knew I was scheduled to be interviewed about 4 days after. I was scheduled to be interviewed about Dee about 4 days after the first Kelvin line Star Trek came on, and I thought, oh my God, do I even want to go see it? Because what if I don't like it? I don't like bad-mouthing people, you know. And I thought, well, I'm just being a coward. I'm just being a coward. Go see it. And I was just delighted. I just cried. It was like, if anybody, he came as close as anybody could possibly have come to resurrecting McCoy, not Kelly. He actually did an homage to Kelly, to Kelly's McCoy, but he made it his own. But it was still, he channeled McCoy, not Kelly. There you go. He channeled McCoy. He got McCoy right. And if Dee had seen it, I think he would have been absolutely as delighted as Leonard Nimoy was with Zachary Quinto's, or Quinto's, or however you say his last name, portrayal of Spock. He just nailed it as closely as anybody, as closely as another actor can nail somebody. You know, he just did it. I was delighted. So of course I went and watched the other ones too. It's like, yeah, I need me some more McCoy. And KARL delivers every time. I'm just so thrilled that they chose him for the role. Oh, and when I met him at Comic-Con like 5 years ago, I actually took him one of Dee's scarves and let him choose it. I had like 5 at the time, and I said, choose the one you want, because I know Dee would want you to have it. And he picked one and he said, well, if we do another Star Trek, it will be in the movie. Somehow it will be in the movie. So we're hoping for another Star Trek. I'd like to see it in the movie. And I'd love to meet him again too. So I guess that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I was a little flustery at the beginning because it took me 20 minutes to get the thing to work. Remember the last time we had that little 20-minute glitch? Well, it kind of happened again, and I don't know why the Twitch TV thing wasn't working. So I had to call in Trevor with StreamYard and have him help me get that thing happening. So I was like post-flustered when I first came on here, and you could tell, but I'm better now. Thank you for being here. Those of you who see it later, I know a lot of people can't see this on Saturday mornings because you're out doing stuff. You have a life. So I hope you see it later. I hope you enjoy it later, and please share it. And if you know anybody who knew Dee or worked with Dee or just would like to talk about what his enduring legacy is like for them 24 years later, I would love to hear from you. You can email me at chris@wordwhisperer.net. Oh, let me tell you two more things. I have some banners up here. I just did an interview about Dee with T. Rick Jones from Daily Star Trek. And if you go here, podcasts.roddenberry.com/show/daily. I'm losing my mind. _star-trek-news/ you'll be able to find it. It turned out really, really well. T. Rick Jones was happy. I was ecstatic. And he's one of the people who will be with me in June talking about how Dee's legacy has enhanced his life. So, and I don't believe he ever had a chance to meet Dee, but it doesn't mean that Dee didn't influence him and enhance his life. So please share this with people who you know are Kelly fans. And what else? Is there anything else? I told you about Celestis. The Celestis flight has been delayed to June or July. You can go to celestis.com to find out more in case it gets delayed again. Of course, I'll let you know on a future ever knew if it does, but they said June or July. They had some kind of a firing glitch, and they want that thing to actually work so they don't end up in the drink out in the Atlantic Ocean or somewhere else. So they have postponed it for another couple of months. And for those of you who would like to, I still have a few items left at the DeForestKellyCollection.com. Some items of Dee's clothing if you want to own something Dee wore, or any of the collectibles he gave me, then you want to go there for that. And if you want to hear older episodes of Evernew, you can go to AltURL, ALTURL.com/k4GOW. And you can find all of the earlier episodes there. Especially look up the ones with Amy Yulin and Ross Trowbridge, and I'm trying to think who else. Mark Lee. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff there. So I will say goodbye for now, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you a lot for being here. See you next time. Bye-bye.